If you've been feeling off lately, consistently tired, bloated after meals, or your skin just won't cooperate no matter what you try, your gut might be worth paying closer attention to. Most of us don't think much about it beyond basic digestion, but it's actually doing a lot more behind the scenes than we ever really give it credit for. We tend to picture the stomach as pretty straightforward. Food goes in, gets broken down, energy comes out. Simple, mechanical, unremarkable. But the reality is quite a bit more interesting than that. But before we continue, welcome back to the channel. We're still growing, so even a single comment from you would mean a lot to us. Here's something that genuinely surprised me when I first came across it. Scientists refer to the gut as our second brain, and not just as a catchy metaphor. There are over 100 million nerve cells lining your gastrointestinal tract, more than you'd find in the entire brain of a cat. And your gut produces around 95% of your body's serotonin, which is a chemical tied to mood, sleep, and appetite. Not your head, your gut. So when your digestion is struggling, it can affect how you feel emotionally and mentally in ways that seem completely unrelated to your stomach. The fatigue, the low mood, the brain fog, a lot of that can trace back to what's happening in your digestive system. The issue is that most of us have spent years, sometimes decades, eating and living in ways that quietly wear the gut down. Processed foods, constant snacking, chronic stress, not enough sleep. Nothing catastrophic on any given day, just a slow, steady buildup that eventually starts showing up as symptoms. Fatigue you can't explain, cravings that feel like they're coming from somewhere else, skin that keeps breaking out, joints that ache in the morning, seasonal allergies that seem to get worse every year. These things feel unconnected, but they're often all pointing at the same root cause. One thing that really changed how I think about this is learning about the gut's natural cleaning cycle. It's called the Migrating Motor Complex, or MMC, and it functions essentially like a built-in broom for your small intestine, sweeping through and clearing out undigested debris, excess bacteria, and waste between meals. The catch is that it only activates when you're not eating. The moment food or even a sugary drink enters the picture, the whole process stops and resets. So if you're eating or snacking from early morning until late at night, that cleaning cycle never really gets to finish what it started. Interestingly, that rumbling sound your stomach makes when it's empty isn't always hunger. A lot of the time, it's actually that cleaning crew finally getting to work. Giving your gut a longer window without food, even just 12 to 14 hours between your last meal at night and your first one the next morning, can make a meaningful difference just by letting that process complete itself. Fiber is another area where most people are getting less than they think and doing less than they could. It's easy to think of fiber as just the thing that keeps you regular, but it's doing a lot more than that. There are two types, and they work differently. Insoluble fiber is more structural. It physically helps move waste through your intestines and keeps things from sitting too long. Soluble fiber is more like a sponge or a magnet. It dissolves into a gel and binds to toxins, old hormones, and bile acids so they can be carried out of the body. This part matters more than most people realize, because if there isn't enough fiber present to grab those toxins, your body actually reabsorbs them back into the bloodstream. Your liver works hard to filter them out, dumps them into the gut for removal, and then, if there's nothing there to escort them out, they just get reabsorbed. It's a loop that keeps you feeling worse than you should. And variety in fiber sources makes a real difference too. Different colored fruits and vegetables contain different phytonutrients, which feed different strains of gut bacteria. A purple carrot feeds different microbes than a red bell pepper or dark leafy greens. The more diverse your plant intake, the more diverse your microbiome becomes. And the diverse microbiome is a more stable, resilient one. It's the difference between a fragile ecosystem with one type of plant and the thriving one with hundreds. The goal isn't perfection, just more variety than you're probably currently getting. The gut lining itself is something worth understanding because it's a lot more delicate than most people imagine. It's just one cell thick, essentially a single layer of tissue separating the food you eat from your internal bloodstream. Over time, things like frequent ibuprofen use, alcohol, and highly processed foods with ingredients like high fructose corn syrup can irritate and gradually degrade that lining. This leads to what's commonly called leaky gut, a condition where small particles that shouldn't be crossing that barrier slip through into the bloodstream. Your immune system spots them and treats them as invaders, triggering an inflammatory response. And because that response becomes chronic rather than occasional, it shows up in all kinds of ways: acne, joint pain, persistent fatigue, heightened food sensitivities. Your body is essentially fighting a low-grade internal battle it can never quite win because the source of irritation never goes away. Supporting the repair of that lining doesn't have to be complicated. Certain herbs like slippery elm and aloe vera juice are what's called mucilaginous. They create a soothing gel-like coating over the gut lining that gives the underlying tissue a chance to heal without being constantly re-irritated by food passing through. Think of it like applying a protective layer over a raw surface while it recovers. Fermented foods like sauerkraut and kimchi are worth adding in as well. They're living foods, packed with beneficial bacteria that are ready to get to work as soon as they arrive. You don't need large amounts. Even a forkful or two a day can begin to shift the balance in your microbiome over time. And mushrooms, which tend to get overlooked in gut health conversations, are actually one of the most useful foods you can eat for this purpose. They contain beta-glucans, which are specialized fibers that feed the specific bacteria responsible for producing the protective mucus lining inside your gut. They're not just food, they're essentially maintenance workers for your inner ecosystem. Stress is the piece that a lot of gut health advice glosses over, but it's genuinely one of the most important factors. When you're in a stress state, your body activates its fight or flight response, which, from an evolutionary standpoint, exists to prepare you to run from a threat. In that mode, digestion is deprioritized. Blood flow shifts away from the gut and toward your muscles. Enzyme production slows down. The whole digestive process essentially stalls. The problem is that in modern life, we're often in that state not because of physical danger, but because of work stress, financial pressure, bad news, or just the general overstimulation of daily life. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between a genuine threat and a stressful email. It responds the same way. And if that response is more or less constant, your gut is in a perpetually suppressed state. You can eat all the right foods and still not absorb much from them if your nervous system isn't in a relaxed enough state to actually run digestion properly. Simple habits like taking a few slow, deep breaths before eating, genuinely slowing down rather than eating at your desk or in your car, and prioritizing sleep aren't just wellness advice, they're mechanically important. The vagus nerve, which connects your brain to your gut, needs to send a calm signal for digestion to actually switch on. None of this is a dramatic overnight fix, and I think it's worth being upfront about that. But the gut is actually quite responsive when you give it consistent, sustained support. Most people start noticing real changes within a week. Less bloating, more stable energy through the day, fewer intense cravings for sugar, skin that starts to settle down. Not because of anything extreme, but because you've stopped working against your own biology and started giving your body what it actually needs to do its job. If you want to take this further, the next thing worth looking into is which foods that appear healthy on the surface are actually making gut repair harder. Some of them are surprisingly common and easy to miss. I covered exactly what they are in the next video, so go check that out before you put your grocery list together. It'll make everything else you've just learned a lot more effective.